welcome to Becoming the HubSpot Super Admin. I'm Matt Bullion with Supered on behalf of Sprocketeers. And if you're becoming a super admin or on your way to becoming one, you're in the right place. I'm glad you're with your people. Today, I'm speaking with none other than Stuart Balcombe, who is the product marketing at Arrows. And he's going to talk to you about his journey about becoming a HubSpot super admin. You may know him as the Steal This Workflow man. And if you don't know him as that, you should. And after this, go to his LinkedIn page and steal all his workflows. So without further ado, welcome, Stuart. Appreciate you having you come talk to me about your journey today.
Thanks so much, Matt. Excited to be here. It's been a fun journey. Appreciate the shout out.
I'm excited to learn it. Y'all actually, Arrows in general as a company has a cool journey, and you as an individual, I'm sure has a cool one as well. Before we get started, what we like to do is just ask some fun questions. You do a lot of things really well. At least I see it on LinkedIn, and I know you're LinkedIn. But Stuart, I have a question for you. And if you could have any superpower besides making amazing workflows that help people do customer success and onboarding, what would it be?
That is a very good question. I think teleportation would be a very cool superpower.
I have a follow-up question. It's like, how far to where place is? Because
Do I have to limit it? I mean, the day-to-day thing, I would love to not sit in traffic. That would be great.
Yeah.
But I do think space would be cool. I do think space would be cool.
You have to have been to the place before you can go there again. You got to visualize it. Okay. And the next is, when you think about HubSpot and your superpower in HubSpot, what is your favorite? And there's a lot of these, and it changes every single day. I think there's just, and this may be dating this at this point, they just like update. There's OR logic in HubSpot now on views. But what's your favorite HubSpot tool?
Ooh, that is
and why? Like inside of HubSpot
question.
itself, we can't pick Arrows, but like inside, what is your favorite?
That's okay. I think that the thing that I lean on the most is maybe a boring one, probably one that a lot of people already know and use already, but I really love required fields. I think required fields in a pipeline are a secretly super powerful superpower. They let you do a lot of stuff, and I think we'll probably get into this as well, is like one of the beauties of HubSpot, one of the big advantages of HubSpot, having all of your data in one place and being able to do things based on that data, being able to require the data that you need at each step in a process is pretty epic.
Agreed. I don't know. I like how simple but eloquent. Adoption is the only thing that matters at the end of the day. And sometimes you got to help adoption. You got to help with data quality, thus required fields. So it's fun. I haven't thought about it, but that is probably one of my top, having done thousands of implementations required.
It's a slow burn, right?
Okay. So let's get into, if we can enter this next I'm going to talk about your story, and gosh, take this where it will be. Before you made HubSpot your superpower, like, what were you doing?
That is a very good question with a very long answer, so I'll try to keep this short. I've been bouncing around on a whole bunch of different things because I get bored easily and like learning new things. So I have been in pretty much exclusively early stage startups, in product roles, in growth roles. The thing that I think is probably most applicable and like most sort of directly related to the stuff that I'm doing now inside of HubSpot is I've always been sort of a no-code person. Like, I like systems, I like building things, but I've never actually been an engineer. So like pushing the edges of systems that aren't really designed to do the thing that you're trying to do. So that's sort of where I guess learned a lot of the things and now applying to
the question as a follow-up there. What is the citizen coder revolution, the no coder? There's a lot of people, I've called it like admins, that grew up in that like follow that path. What were you doing? What's a system that you were like, okay, where you cut your teeth, no coding?
Yeah, I think Zapier was probably the first one where I did a lot of stuff. I put this in an old boss will remember this. I put this in a job application, but at one point we broke Typeform by having too many logic jumps in a single form, and we started getting server errors because it was not expecting that much stuff in a single form.
That's a t-shirt that you make and you like hang up and get signed.
Yeah.
Badge of honor. Yeah, he's this whole the no code in Zapier, and I guess the other one now Mate. Yeah, just lots of good fun inside of that. So you were making before HubSpot, right? And you're saying I love the no code, but like, what was there ever another system you specialized in? Like, what made you say I'm going to be a HubSpot super admin? This is my superpower. And did you ever have any other superpowers in other systems before that? Like Zapier is one that kind of exists across, but like, was there another system?
Not really, honestly. I like not a tool that had the where you would have to stay inside of the tool and had a lot of power inside of one tool. I think that I've never really been in a purely ops role. So like
Mm,
the things that I've done even on the no code side have always been, I'm trying to solve a problem and I don't want to go bug somebody, or we don't have a resource who can go build the thing. It's like, how do I just go solve that problem? Which didn't necessarily mean going super deep into any one individual thing. It was sort of, okay, to the extent to which we can solve this problem, let's go solve the problem. Um,
got it. So that means
so
so it makes
yeah,
sense. So Zapier exists across all these. You have these like you'd be in a tool, be like, I know I can't solve this here. I'm gonna go pretend to code. I'm gonna go to Zapier, make the stuff happen, and execute whatever that process is.
right.
I think this is interesting. Just I'm gonna put this because this is non-traditional. I usually keep it to the individual, but let's go to the company. Arrows was not always HubSpot only. What was Arrows doing before they decided HubSpot, and then why would the switch?
Yeah, this is probably a better story than the personal story, honestly. So I've been at Arrows for 15-ish months, something
They're
like
gonna say
that.
15 years. It's like goodness.
No,
Okay.
no. When I joined, so Arrows for context is a tool that you can use to send a collaborative plan to a customer so that you can work towards an outcome. So generally in onboarding, but you can use it in other places. So before HubSpot, Arrows was doing that, but it was a standalone tool. You had to go log into it, you had all
Mm,
your data in it, you had your customers in it. And the thing that we sort of kept getting two requests over and over again. Or two questions over and over again. One was, you know, do I have to recreate all my customer data in a new place? I don't want my data
mm,
about my customers siloed in a place that is different than what every other team is using. And at the same time, we were getting the feature requests or the request to extend existing features that we have. I need a better dashboard. I need more complicated or more robust reporting. I want automation. I need to manage my workflows to help empower and scale my team. And when we already had an integration with HubSpot and Salesforce, we knew that integrating data at some level was important. But the thing that made it sort of really clear that we should change that approach was that HubSpot already had all of the things and much better versions of all of the
mm,
things that we were getting asked for, and had all the teams who wanted to interact with customer data. So we sort of flipped the model and said, okay, so what if we weren't a standalone tool and existed inside of the tool that people are already using? And instead of pulling data out of that tool so they can use it in our tool, we push all the data from our tool back into HubSpot that makes HubSpot more powerful, right? So now you can use all of the HubSpot reporting, workflows, all the power of HubSpot with a whole new range of data, which is coming from Arrows. So you essentially get product data about how customers are interacting with the plan that you're putting in front of them that you can use inside of HubSpot. So you can report
mm.
on that, but you can use it to say, if we are working on this problem together, we wanted it done by this day and it's not done, let's trigger an internal task for our team. Let's notify and escalate this to somebody else if they, go past a certain SLA or something like that.
Mm.
And we, biased, of course, but sort of got the best of both worlds in that our customers get to stay in the tool that they were already using, don't have to recreate everything that they were already doing. And Arrow's got much, much more powerful while providing something that HubSpot doesn't have, which is a customer facing way to interact with a process, right? You have pipelines, you have properties in HubSpot. The customer has no visibility into that. You're not inviting them into your HubSpot account. Arrows gives them that in a sort of easy to follow, direct path to where they're trying to get to.
I'll make sure I recap. You turned HubSpot into your product development team, and then y'all focused on one product and made it even better, and everybody loved it. That's what I just heard, which is great. I'll go to the next is because I think it's this meta trend that's happening, Stuart, is this idea of I think there's a great consolidation going to occur. And it's this idea of if someone's building a tool and it's not already built on some other platform, it's just going to be, there's going to be a lot of friction, especially as people's budgets cross, they get down. So there's just a lot of momentum. So I think it's a cool story just in general. I think you are on the precipice of what a lot of tools. I mean, quite frankly, when we built Super, like that's what we do as well. So it's like, it's a precipice of an entire movement that's occurring. I have a question for you is I love the thought behind it. But couldn't that same logic be used for Salesforce? Like why did y'all choose HubSpot? And I'll just go to the company because I think it's fun. But like why did you not choose Salesforce? Because that's generally the same truth, correct?
For sure. At the sort of principle level, sure, right? They are both tools that you keep as sort of the source of truth for your customer record. You have teams that are in them. So a couple of things. One, I think we sort of looked at the rise of HubSpot and how quickly HubSpot is, you alluded to this earlier, how quickly HubSpot is making changes, how quickly people are adopting HubSpot, the way that HubSpot is going up market. There's all sorts of things happening in the HubSpot ecosystem that make it attractive from a tool that if you're going to bet on a tool, it seems like a pretty reasonable bet. But more importantly, and I think
I'm going to interrupt for a second. I just heard you say, I'm not putting words in your mouth, so I'll say it myself. What I just heard is, as we talk about people becoming HubSpot admins, I heard you say HubSpot is a better bet than Salesforce, and y'all decided, for at least when you're looking at the market, you're thinking about it. I think that decision is going to be made more and more often. So anyway,
yeah, and I think as any company is, we're constrained on resources and have to make we couldn't start with both, right? So it's sort of, where do you start? But the bigger reason, I think that the thing that is if you want to compare directly HubSpot and Salesforce, the thing that I think HubSpot does incredibly well and is like from a vision and product narrative perspective that HubSpot is certainly doing well, is that go-to-market is changing for teams, right? You need to have a cohesive, strategic go-to-market plan that doesn't just put marketing over here, sales over there, CS over there. The way that buyers buy is not linear, right? The way that you drive revenue is not as simple as like, well, we sold them on day one and that's great. That there are more teams at play for any one customer in their journey. And I think HubSpot does that better than just about anybody. And where the Arrows product sits in that journey and onboarding is really at one of those sort of key friction points between teams. So having the ability for a team to sit, both teams to sit in HubSpot, and that actually be a thing that is happening more and more was important for us.
That's a good point. Salesforce, you have your sales team in Salesforce, and it's built on that spoke model, so it's churn zero. And now you have a tool that sits in between those, and it's a lot less friction to integrate into HubSpot that has both teams in one place. This integrated makes it just more effective.
Yeah, I mean, just a really quick note there. I think that it is, maybe I'll get shade for this, but the challenge with having a dedicated tool for any team is not just that you have to push data there, not just that you have to push data back, but you need to give the teams visibility into what's happening in both tools, right? Whereas in HubSpot, you have sales, marketing, and CS potentially in the same tool. Otherwise, you have sales over here, marketing over here, CS over here. Even if the data is flowing, the teams are in different places.
And making the data flow itself costs more money. And what I like to say is every database you add, you have multiplied your complexity. It's not additive. So one of the benefits is when you have one database, there's just a lot less friction.
And not everything's there, right? Like just because you have all the data about the customer there, you don't necessarily have the internal team notes. You don't necessarily have the records of all the activity that's happened with that customer. You don't have the full picture.
So y'all have fully committed to HubSpot, and then you are now, in part of that commitment, have gone and are still this workflow man. And I mean, like known, you put a workflow out, and hundreds of people DM you and and then put comments, want it. And if you could give, as you think about these workflows, if you could give some of our soups, right, that are listening right now, what are 3 pointers you'd give to somebody? Like, hey, I know you're in HubSpot now. What are the 3 pointers you'd give to them?
Yeah, this is actually something I think about a lot. Is like, what are the patterns of a good workflow? And this is like not a thing that I started on day one with, as I sort of mentioned earlier. Like workflows and any of this sort of building things without code has always been a means to an end. It's like, I want to solve a problem, and this is just a way to go do it. Which honestly has been all this workflow stuff has been, we were trying to solve this business problem, and we figured out a way to do it inside of HubSpot, and I figured, why not share it? But I think in terms of patterns, I think that the first thing is figuring out what is the data that, start with the data. What is the data that you need to have, are consistently going to have, and know when it will be updated. Like, what is will it actually be updated in a way that is going to drive your workflow, is going to, make this work not just the first time because you triggered it manually, but every time into the future. So I think that's
what I heard is data, understand the inputs and how something gets put into a system. And so when you're creating a workflow, you understand your data flow, and that's paramount. So like, as your step, like one of the effects, just come and understand how the data and what fields are being used and how people are putting the data in. And that will allow you to make better workflows. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that is using, one of my favorite things in workflows is using, property is known, right? And just turning re-enrollment on, right? Run this every time we meet some threshold in the data, do this thing. There's so many workflows that I've shared that are basically the same model, right? But it's solving a different problem using that trigger. And you can set the threshold. You can use it for health scoring. You can use it for notifying your sales team when some number of page views or specific page views is met. What is the threshold that is going to trigger this? The second thing, and I think that this is a thing that is will save you a whole lot of headaches later, but is easy to ignore, is what happens if you don't have the data? How are you handling the exception? How are you handling the error case of this workflow? The thing that you don't want to happen is to have a workflow that you expected to be automated and run 100 times a day or whatever it is, to fail silently, and you have no idea that it's failing. So how do you add and it's not tricky in a workflow, how do you add a branch, checks that the data is actually there as you expect it, and notifies your team, the responsible person on the internal side, that they need to go do something?
So number one, know data flow, and so that you can make better workflows. Number two, add a exception to workflows that will send a notification when it fails to trigger, which would probably be a feedback loop to make number one better.
Exactly.
What's number three?
Number three. This is a good one. I think that being conscious of what is trying to decide between multiple things there. I think finding ways to reuse elements in a workflow. That is one of the things that I've found. There are lots of things in HubSpot workflows that you can essentially take the same little block, right? If it's decision, send an external notification, send an internal notification, check if the next thing happened, repeat. There are lots of little things like that apply. You can sort of keep applying the same model, and I think that is keeping it simpler, but trying to go back and repeat the same pattern ultimately is how you build things that are more maintainable, things that are easier to understand. I think that's sort of part of that is, if I wasn't the person who built this, would the person who comes in to try to figure out what this thing does know what it does and know how to find the problem in the workflow?
So summarize: data flow, know it. Number 2, data exceptions to make sure the data flow is occurring. And number 3, kiss it, right? Keep it simple, stupid. And then when you do, like, reuse blocks and chunks,
Right.
And so you can reuse it. Stuart, I have one last question for you, maybe 2. One last question, and it is, what's the gosh, you bleed orange now, right? And you used to bleed Zapier, whatever color that would be, and
Also orange.
orange. Yeah, I think it's orange. It's natural. It naturally comes. What would you tell someone that's becoming a super admin? It's like, hey, choosing between the Salesforce or HubSpot ecosystem. What rally cry? Like, what thing would you give them to say, hey, I believe in you, or hey,
I mean,
here's my advice.
Yeah, I think that honestly, the beauty of HubSpot is the things that now exist around HubSpot, right? The HubSpot community is incredibly supportive. And I think it's in part because HubSpot is approachable as a tool. I think if you're starting from scratch, try, right? Like, make a thing, try to solve the problem, and then ask, right? Because there will almost certainly be somebody there who has done it before, who has tried to, run into the same hang up that you're running into. And I think having something that is concrete and you try to make progress, hey, I'm stuck, ask the community. There is obviously Sprocketeer, there's the HubSpot community itself, community.hubspot.com. There's all sorts of places where HubSpot admins hang out, are easy to find,
Yeah.
are easy to access, are
The
ready to
admin
help.
LinkedIn group that Kyle Jepson has now. Like, there's just it's a lot of different places.
Yeah. So I think that the barrier to entry is low. The community is incredibly supportive. Just start.
Stuart, thank you for sharing your journey from Zapier All-Star to HubSpot Super Pro plus Zapier, and the journey that goes. If people want to connect with you and learn more about you, where would they go?
LinkedIn is almost certainly the best spot. For me, I try to post skill lists, workflows every Tuesday, Thursday, with a whole lot of onboarding and customer success stuff sprinkled in there. Otherwise, arrows.to. If you are looking for a product that is deeply, deeply integrated with HubSpot, we're also always happy to talk about HubSpot. Folks trying to run customer success or looking to run more of the post-sale process in HubSpot, always happy to chat. But LinkedIn, shoot me a DM, connect, always happy to talk.
And in the future, in a time soon, probably by the time this comes out, you could probably get you can actually steal these, push a button, and have them deployed directly into your instance at Super. I just want to thank you for your time today, Stuart. Appreciate you. Wherever anyone is on their path to becoming a HubSpot admin, know that there's some really good sources. As Stuart said, Stuart's a good resource. Sprocketeers is a great resource. Community is a great resource. And there's always somebody that will help you work through the problem that you go. So go forth and be supered. Stay awesome. Adios, team.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Matt.